Hello again. Here is training number 6. In this training, I want to talk to you about communicating with difficult bosses and how to do that effectively and feel okay about it, feel good about it. I have had my share of difficult bosses in the past, and I think I've been a difficult boss at some points in time. So I've kind of seen this from both sides. But one thing that I've noticed as a lawyer is that often people will come to me and they'll say they don't want to stand up to their boss, or they don't want to ask their boss to change their behavior because they're afraid of getting fired. And so then what I see is sometimes people will quit instead. So we'll quit and take ourselves out of the situation and sort of punish ourselves ahead of time rather than standing up to our boss, our difficult bosses, or asking for the behavior that we want to see in the workplace. So what I always encourage people to do is to show up, do their jobs really well, and to have their own back. And if their boss needs to fire them, then they shouldn't be working there anyway. But often, so people think like, I need to get a recommendation from my boss. I need to preserve the reference. I need to not make waves and not make my boss dislike me, right? And the reality is that if your boss is a really unreasonable, difficult person, you're probably not going to get a great reference from them anyway. And it's always worth keeping yourself safe and creating the environment that you want, and asking for behavior to change that you don't want to tolerate. So being on your own side about what you want to tolerate in terms of other people's behavior and what you don't. So one thing that I see is when we have a boss, like we're raised as kids with teachers and parents that we have to look to for how we should act, how we should behave, what we should expect from life, right? And as kids, that makes sense. So we are taught to get an A+ and to have the teacher like us and to learn behavior from grown-ups and even to obey, right? And then as adults, we kind of take that into situations with our unreasonable bosses, and we attribute to them that they're the grown-up and we're the child, kind of. Like we kind of maintain this relationship where they have something that we don't have, and a lot of times that's not true. I even see this with younger attorneys that I will mentor. Sometimes they'll say, well, I'm still learning, so I have to do what this older attorney tells me, even if I think that it's not correct or that it's hurting a client. And I think we often don't attribute to ourselves enough credit for what we really know. And sometimes, even if we're younger, we know more than the person who's older than us, and we're all adults, right? So I just like to say, if you're attributing to your boss some kind of knowledge that you don't have, stop it. Treat yourself like an adult and know that you are an adult. So this is sort of the first step in what I want to teach you about how to communicate with difficult bosses. I call this the new FBA. So it's the fire your boss analysis. If you've ever heard of a functional behavior analysis, this is something that behaviorists do to determine the motivation of a child, for example, or a puppy or an adult or anybody's behavior, the motivation of behavior. We all are motivated by certain rewards we want to get. So this is like when you're talking about a kid and the kid is acting out, but you're giving the kid attention, even if you're yelling at the kid. So that's like attention maintained behavior. So behavior is generally motivated by, I like to look at 3 areas that behavior is motivated by. It's motivated by tangible reward. So motivated by money, for example, food, sleep, sex, all these tangible physical things. Money's kind of a token reward, but it can feel tangible. Attention, so tangible reward, attention-based reward, or escape-based reward. So a lot of people who have significantly negative behavior, like our bosses who yell at us, it's attention maintained behavior because we're giving them attention back. We're paying attention to them when they're yelling at us. Some people have escape maintained behavior. So escape maintained behavior is like avoiding work. So sometimes we'll get sick, we'll physically get sick and we even unconsciously know that if we get sick, we don't have to go to work, we don't have to do something difficult. So a functional behavior analysis looks at what is motivating this other person's behavior, right? So if your boss is being difficult and you the first step is fire them as your boss. Pretend that they're not your boss. Pretend that they don't have special knowledge that's more than you. Pretend that you are the person who has the significant wisdom and knowledge and intuition in the situation. So fire the boss and then take a look at what is motivating their behavior. So you can look at this in terms of, like, are they seeking attention? Are they trying to get out of work? Are they trying to survive, right? Trying to make sure they can put food on the table for their kids. You want to look at those three things, and then you want to look at what is the thinking area. You want to ask why a lot. Why are they acting in this way? And they think that it's going to get them something important, right? And so then you want to just be super curious, and you can do this to them and ask questions about their behavior if you want to, if that feels safe to you. And then you want to figure out what is the thinking error they are having that's making them think that having this difficult behavior will get them something important. So the difficult boss is looking for something important in their life. They're looking to avoid work that they don't want to do, to get attention, or to get some kind of tangible reward. Make sure that their kids are going to eat, right? And then it's always a thinking error that leads us to behave in negative ways in order to get the thing that we want to get. So if you can be curious about what their thinking error is that's leading them to have negative behavior, you can address the root cause of their behavior if you want to. So the first step in this, though, is so important, of, like, in your mind firing them as your boss, because if you're trying to manipulate their behavior to make yourself safe, that's the hardest way to keep yourself safe. So you want to make sure that you're maintaining the duty to yourself to keep yourself safe no matter what, and then not thinking of them as somebody superior to you, as the person who controls your safety, because it can be dangerous to use this tool without taking the responsibility for yourself to keep yourself safe and make sure that you're in a safe space before you do this. But once you're in a safe space, once you're not thinking about them as your boss, you can really diagnose the negative behavior that they're having, what they're looking for based on this negative behavior, and what the thinking error is that's leading them to have negative behavior in order to get what they want. So an example of this is, like, I had this boss this one time, and this may be a person who could watch this video, so I love you. And I worked in this area, and this particular boss, it was like a service industry, like sales area, and this particular boss had a window in their office that they could look down on our work areas. And so they would open the window and just yell at us to go do more work, to go sell more things. And it was very alarming. So you first have this fear response when somebody's yelling at you, right? And so you have to address that first. But then once you can get past that and know that you're safe and commit to yourself to take care of yourself and to be safe, then you can be curious about what's going on for this person that they think yelling at a bunch of people in like a sales area is going to help, right? Is going to motivate them. So I could tell with this boss that they're afraid they're not going to make sales goals, right? And if they don't make sales goals, then they literally feel like they're not going to eat. So this boss had this thinking error that if everybody didn't sell harder, that they were like not going to eat dinner that night or something. There was like a lot of scarcity coming through it. So if we could reaffirm that that boss was safe and that we were making all the sales goals, it could calm things down a little bit and de-escalate the situation to deal with them. But also looking at it in that way, that this person's experiencing so much scarcity around these simple issues, could also give me compassion for this boss as a human and not as somebody who has authority over my life. So that meant that I didn't absorb their scarcity thinking into the way I was treating myself. I could interrupt that process and choose something different for myself and choose a different way to impact the environment. So this is something to remember. First, fire the boss in your mind. They're not your boss anymore. They're just a human who's having problem behavior. They're not the determiner of whether you're safe in life. They don't know more than you. They don't have better intuition than you. They may have years on you, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know what you know. So fire the boss in your mind. Then diagnose what they're thinking, their thinking error that's leading to their problem behavior. Make sure you're not absorbing that thinking error into yourself, right? Don't believe whatever is leading to their problem behavior. Question it. Think, is that true? Is that 100% true? Can you 100% know that this thinking error is true? And if not, what's the alternative? How do you want to treat yourself? Interrupt it. And then you can make an impact on the boss's behavior itself if you know where it's coming from. If you're very curious and you figure out why this boss is having problem behavior, what's their thinking error that's leading to it, what's the fear or the anger or whatever they're feeling that the thinking error is creating, that they're having this problem behavior, and then you can address the root cause of their behavior. Sometimes bosses are not open to this, and so the most important part is that you're not absorbing the thinking error and that you're treating yourself with respect. Ultimately, no matter who in the hierarchy of your company, of your business, no matter who is designated above you, you are your boss. You're the person who determines whether you keep working at this place or you don't. You're the person who determines whether you show up or don't show up at this place or don't. You are your boss. How do you want to treat yourself as the boss of your experience? So when I see these employees sort of quitting instead of impacting their boss's behavior, what I see is that the way that they're treating themselves as their own boss is they're firing themselves ahead of time. Instead, I think it's always possible to treat yourself the way you want your boss to treat you, and just notice what you're tolerating in your environment. Notice how what you're expecting for yourself. Notice if you're compromising how much money you should make or what your work hours should be. And then how do you want to treat yourself by firing the external boss and then hiring yourself as the boss? I feel like I was being a little bit confusing about this, just in the sense of like, when you're firing the boss, you're not literally quitting, right? You're just in your mind saying, they don't have this authority over me that I'm inclined to attribute to them. I'm the one that has the authority of whether I'm here or whether I'm gone. I'm going to hire myself in this situation. I'm going to show up for my work, and then I'm going to protect myself and commit to my own safety when someone is behaving in a way I don't want to tolerate around me. So hire yourself as your boss, even while you're working for somebody else. Ask yourself how you want to treat yourself as the boss of every employment experience or every business that you have. All right, that's training 6. I am curious with all of these, how it works to apply them, and let me know if you have any questions. If you want to go through our a little bit more in-depth training, that's at erisresolution.com/power dynamics. That's where we go through an introduction to the tools that we teach all of our individual clients and everyone who comes through our office. And thank you for listening. Say hello in the comments below.